Alright. Okay, everyone. This is Rangadad. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. And we have had a pretty boring freaking weekend, really. Little breakout overnight, my time last night. I mean, it had to do something, didn't it? Couldn't just coil and wedge forever. Is it a strong breakout or not? I mean, it's not super strong. It's still bucking the trend. I did a bit of a write-up in Discord of stuff to look out for over the weekend after the Friday close in the US. And I mean, as I said in there, there's a lot of downward momentum to overcome, particularly on the higher time frames at the moment. But it looks like it's trying. Obviously, we've still got a lot of potential trading that would go on around the 64.5 to 64 level. And sometimes the market just loves to go to those areas. But before that, it will want to fake everyone out. Just the same as it wants to fake everyone out thinking it's going to the downside before it goes to the upside. It's not a conspiracy or anything like that. It's just that's the way the market works with human emotions. So it's quite an interesting beast, the markets. But anyway, bullish smart money's not super convinced by this move yet, but it is increasing and showing reasonable signs of a turnaround there. BBWP is quite low. Stochastic momentum's still pointed down, but it's got the chance to actually turn around the 50 mark. As you can see here, like it can turn around. You don't necessarily have to wait for it to hit the control zones down here. That region around the 50 level can be quite a good bounce zone. As you can see here, you can go on a fair run just from bounces around that region. Even like this one here, obviously after a bit of consolidation around this point, dipped in and then bounced up and went ballistic. So momentum doesn't really show you the velocity or the veracity of a move. It just gives you an idea of which way the overall market is heading. Now, I mean, we did have this sort of pattern. We've had that on there for ages. Would I have liked it to come down a bit further before it started to move away? Yes. Closing above this candle here would be really bullish at 68,800 roughly. It's still a critical level until we actually clear above that. It's hard to be super bullish. We did have a cross of the advanced decline line as well. The EMAs have actually crossed, and that is actually quite rare. Just want to just change that to yellow. So back here, did it happen there? It did happen there for a whole 1 bar. Yeah, literally 1 bar right at the bottom. Here it has happened again. And it's been like that for a couple of bars now. 1, 2, including today, that would be 2 bars. So it needs to turn around here. I'd like to see a bump in the advanced decline line. Like once you get a couple of bars under here, it can turn around quite quickly, especially when we've got this choppy sort of moves, big moves in both directions. It's just when we start to go below is when you get a little bit worried when you're at the highs and stuff. So, you know, having that cross up towards the top here is a little bit more scary than having it down the bottom here when you're in a range anyway. So not too freaked out by that. It is similar on the S&P 500, except it hasn't crossed yet. So again, S&P 500 is having a BBWP reset, kind of like we've been saying for a while. This could just be a sideways consolidation rather than a pullback. So pullback in time. Kind of need to see a tick up of the advanced decline line, preferably above that moving average there. RSP was still down on Friday, so it's getting closer to its bearish control zone. So it'd be interesting if this dips in and then moves away at the same time that the SPY is hitting the mid band or somewhere around the mid band here, the 0 level. If that happens, then that's not a bad point. Similar point here. Could even have divergence on this chart, hidden bullish divergence. If it comes a little bit lower, it still remains above this low here. Q's had a weird day. Yeah, it's still kind of nothing. Like, thing that concerns me is this candle here has just reclaimed all these vectors. There's no the only vector left up there is this one here. So I don't think we're going to new lows, like a big bear market or anything like that. But it's kind of, it looks like it's sweeping these highly traded levels, or the levels where there's liquidity, preparing for a move down. In reality, it's probably just sideways choppiness still. Equal weight cues, obviously it's recovered this vector here and maybe a little bit of this one. Again, there's not a lot it needs to do further up if it does want to keep moving down. And we are sort of advanced decline line still coming down, still below the moving averages. So again, going for a reset on BBWP. The next move should be a pretty decent one, I think. And I have a funny feeling it's just going to keep doing this until the election's over. Just sort of trudge sideways and down on the equal weight, sideways on the regular ones. Maybe a little bit down, pick up this wick in here. If we get a major drop, I'd be a little bit surprised, but yeah, there have been some big dark pool transactions as well. IWM's an interesting one. I think it will run harder than the big guys when the market does turn around. It just seems like it's been coiling, waiting for a big move for a while. Big vector candle here. Could see sort of bounces up into that area 223, 225-ish area. That is definitely possible, even while sort of consolidating sideways. XLI industrials aren't doing too crash hot, but it looks like they could be getting close to a bottom. Again, everything's just kind of moving slowly sideways. This is the weird thing. XLY, XLP had a really decent green day. Coming into some resistance soon, I would say. But that's kind of against the market trend. Typically, if the market's going down and things were going to look like a proper bear market, then you'd expect this to be coming down with it. It just wasn't. So ARE a little bit. Well, it was a big down day, but don't really. And I'm still not really freaked out by this at all. A retest into this trend line, potentially below like we got here, is still okay. ITB, home construction's down a bit. Not looking super terrible. It might have a little bit further to run. We are in the bearish control zone, and BBWP is still increasing. Best decline's still down. Yeah. This is the one that still probably concerns me the most, that we haven't seen more of a drop off, and yet DJI versus gold has seen a drop. That is normally a precursor to what's going on, but could also just be showing us that this is a pullback in time rather than a pullback in dollar value. Could just be an anomaly because of the run that gold's having as well. VIX did have a decent update. Skew had a little bit of a jump as well. Not a huge one, but that suggests that we may have a little base for a time being. What you don't want to see is a big crash on this again. Another crash on this, and I think we will have a bigger pullback. This is all pretty important for Bitcoin because if we do get a big pullback on the markets, I would expect Bitcoin to do the same stage. Chinese market is pretty flat. There's probably a bit of coiling going to happen over this week. I don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting week. As soon as that election is confirmed, so the markets will run up from there, regardless of who wins. I think they're just waiting for some clarity. Everyone's already saying it doesn't really matter who wins from a spending perspective or any sort of economic perspective, although a lot of the bigger guys seem to want Trump to win. They think he'll be better for big business to make money. That's what I'm hearing. Yields are still going up, which is a little bit of a concern with them going up. It does make it hard for the market to go up. Just a reprice of what the market thought was going to happen. Copper's still floating around this level, still coiling. It has broken the stochastic momentum bearish control zone. The fact that it's done that and hasn't actually broken out yet is probably a little concerning, but it's looking good for a breakout. It's just whether or not we get sideways for a while with the market. There's still underlying, it looks like the market still wants to go up reasonably soon. This week's going to be interesting. Durable goods was not down as much as they thought. So jolts this week. GDP this week, personal spending, ISM manufacturing. So pretty big week for news. And I think the election's at the end of it, isn't it? Something like that. Next, fix the election. No. Anyway. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at the moment. No real conviction to the upside or downside yet. I wouldn't, not really sitting there waiting for a downside move. Kind of still am a bit concerned for Bitcoin to the downside, but there are, watching Crown's analysis the other night, there's a lot of stats to suggest longer term timeframes that they are quite bullish. It's just sort of those 4-hour and daily at the moment aren't necessarily there, in my opinion. 60's still sort of consolidating at this high here. I would still expect a pullback into the 200. Doesn't necessarily have to happen straight away, but yeah, Aussie dollar's struggling. CPI, they're expecting it to come down and come down quite a bit. That could rattle the market a little if it doesn't. Chinese yen's doing the same. The interesting, like, the thing that could really throw a spanner in the markets is seeing this, if the Japanese central bank raises interest rates to try and prop up their dollar, or pumps money into it, that could cause a bit of a shockwave to the downside in US markets. Euro, and maybe a little bit more downside into this second support level here, but that's a pretty good bounce level. Kind of need proper confirmation that this is a base. And if that occurs and the US dollar comes back, then it's a bit more bullish. Global liquidity is flat. I did see that this had actually, I think this had actually increased last quarter. This doesn't update till this won't update till December, which is freaking ridiculous. But I saw an article over the weekend that seemed to suggest they had the figures already. So housing's still strong, which realistically you need to see that roll over before you get a recession fall. Yeah, look, this suggests more downside. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average. If that sort of breaks this level, I would expect the markets to be pulling back a little bit more before an upside. This is kind of the interesting thing. The Mag 7's still breaking this range, so it still seems like it's more of a rotation thing than anything. At the moment, the money's moving around. Tesla had a pretty good day, right into this top of this vector here. I think target realistically is around the $300 at 298. Tesla, trying to short this would be just ridiculous. Trying to catch the top on it. You want to look for proper turnarounds if you're going to short Tesla. It ain't there at the moment. Yeah, look, most of the big guys had a reasonable Friday, but nothing special, nothing sort of breakout to the upside kind of level. Not great. I'll come back to BTC long. Quick look. Ethereum still struggling this weekend as well. One thing I said in Discord was we could sort of come up into the middle of this vector candle and then pull back from that. At the highs, you kind of do expect that. You don't expect it to leave a vector candle if it's going to come back more. If it was going to go up, I actually would expect normally it would come more into this wick on the one of the next few candles. So yeah, it's not like here you kind of over the 3 days you recovered 50% of that vector. So again, downside. If we're not breaking that level in the next day or two, I suspect we're heading down back into the 64. This 64 keeps coming up as a target. Like pretty well, if we roll over here, that's my target. It's 60. But for the time being, like it's still October's still a thing. We started October. That was the start there, wasn't it? So 63,300. It's not. It won't be the biggest percentage gain if we finish there, but it's still 2.5% up. Around here somewhere, we're still sort of 7% up. So just remember the using sort of what has happened historically in Bitcoin is just it's fraught with danger now. Now there's big players involved, big money involved. It's going to behave differently for the most part. Should still get runs, should still get big moves. That's what they're in here for, but they're also going to take profit differently to what the rest of the market would normally do. So retail and the hodlers, it's a very different beast. Interesting close on CME. So yeah, we could, if we open, like if CME opens around this level again, I'd say you could potentially see a bit more of a pullback. It is high. I hate when it goes on a big run from the highs. Like this consolidation here, it started right at the lows, but the breakout realistically was sort of right at the high. It makes it really hard around taking profits and stuff, but you know, it looks like we might have a similar situation on our hands. You know, break out at the highs or from highs on stochastic momentum. Buying in at the lows would have been pretty handy. People that were buying in around here and holding could be fairly well rewarded, but it's just we've been sitting in this bullish control zone for quite a while now. Looks a little bit different on the normal charts rather than CME, but it's still pretty well. You're in the highs when you're breaking out on momentum. So yeah, we don't have to get more of a pullback into the bearish control zone first. I guess that's a key takeaway from this. The key thing really is that we flip this momentum, and with BBWP that low, it should be the next big move. It's just if we had a big red candle here and BBWP jumped and stochastic momentum was to the downside, then could be a decent move to the downside. We just want to see nice orderly coiling and then basically a breakout of BBWP as momentum's turning. As soon as we get that, then yeah, okay, I'm turning more bullish. Solana, this could show us the way. You kind of want a daily closure above that wick there for it to become bullish, but it is certainly looking pretty good for a run at the 202 mark. And to be honest with you, I'd probably expect it to go to new all-time highs. So this is a positive sign, in my opinion, that Bitcoin could be just coiling here, ready for that break. Near, yeah, I mean, just looking at some of these, they're not looking super strong, but they are resetting on their BBWPs and stochastic momentums as well. So this one, Pepe has recovered a lot of the vectors in this area too. So it seems to be primed for a decent upside. It's just, if you're going to get into some of these, you're going to have to expect them to not really run for, like, they're not going to run straight away necessarily. Market looks fairly content with just trying to suck in as much liquidity as it can. Now, this one here, what we had over the weekend, basically, don't worry about these labels here. Just trying to visually debug some stuff on this indicator, but you know, we were forming a pretty decent wedge pattern here. It looks like the breakout of the 200 EMA, it looked like it was going to happen, Obviously, this is why you wait for confirmation. Interestingly, we didn't actually get it. And you do get this a little bit with Bitcoin. It can just blast straight through a breakout and not reconfirm, especially when it has sort of been coiling and faking out quite a bit. It has left a lot of vectors behind. It's not looking super strong, but it does look like it wants to kind of recover a bit of this wick here. So back up into the 68 would be interesting. Didn't even really reconfirm the 50 yet. So, I mean, that's pretty close though. So little sort of mini breakout, hasn't really followed through yet. You kind of want to see a bit more volume coming through as it breaks out again. And this breakout was on really low volume compared to, you know, some of these bigger moves through the week. And that's what you can get over the weekend. That's why it's so hard. It's pretty easy to do these big moves and the fake outs because the volume is so low. Like, what's the volume on that? 942 and 1,000 Bitcoin. Yeah, nearly 2,000 Bitcoin. Whereas these things here are 3,000, 16,000 Bitcoin. You know, it's just easier to move the markets the way they want to move them. So yeah, look, shorter time frames for the time being are relatively bullish. It did pretty well recover this vector candle here. Sorry for the mess with the indicators. So it's basically recovered this one here at your next target. Like that 68,800 is a pretty key target. I think if we break above that, where's the ray? There is a vector wick in there. That's going to be pretty key level. I think it's come close to it twice there. But for the time being, you got to just be careful that it's not doing this to eat up some liquidity, and that is the case. You know, it is just chopping, eating liquidity and moving away. And when it does this, it sucks in these shorts here. So it's basically building up. Like, look at that. That's taking a lot of short-term liquidity there. And that's what it seems to be running for at the moment. Is more the short-term stuff. Stuff that it can get to easily, I guess. And doesn't seem to be running towards any longer-term liquidity. Some big orders come in here in the last few days. 60 million. Yeah. Yeah, it could run up into that level pretty easily. 8.5. If it turns around from there and doesn't take these wicks here up around that high 68, then yeah, be a little bit more bearish at that stage. Yeah, I think as you can see, it's sort of just chopping, trying to get more liquidity into the market. There is a fair bit to the upside still, as we know, like 70k, 72k are still massive levels that have been sitting there for a very long time. So this 64,400 level, this is why you got to zoom out sometimes. That would be a very decent level for it to run into. Yeah. When you look at it on these sort of levels, it dwarfs the liquidity that's in these parts here close by. So kind of looking at it as a what's it going to do on the longer term time frames. No, this would make sense, but then you come out to the actually it's a 6 month. Come out to the 6 month, and you get this. You're like, well, okay, that's freaking $6.9 billion worth sitting in there. And look, most of these guys you would expect them taking profits at some stage, but it just shows you this is going to be a highly traded level, and the market loves moving into those highly traded levels. That's what the liquidity is really showing you. That's where the market maker wants to run into. He wants to go where people want to trade. 70k is a pretty so now we could rip through these levels pretty quickly if there is a lot of short squeeze that happens around there. But I think it's going to be, we're going to be climbing the wall of worry still. There'll be pullbacks and potentially reasonable pullbacks just to freak out the people that are heavily long at those points. Even a breakout and then a pullback around 64 is probably a pretty good level before we move higher. Everyone will be going long at that point, and the market will probably want to take a lot of those long. We also had some interesting open interest action over the weekend. So decent bottoming on this indicator. And then obviously we trudged up, but open interest stayed pretty high the whole way through here. They were buying pretty heavily, opening positions pretty heavily all the way through that dip. not many got closed out on the dip, so they have been accumulating a little bit. It doesn't look like we've got much of a topping signal yet, so could keep going. Levels are looking pretty good. Seen a lot, like millions of dollars per hour getting liquidated. This chart showing there's still a fair bit to the upside if it wants it, but there's also a fair bit to the downside. Let's get to that. So on the daily, it's a little bit out of balance to the downside. 7 days pretty even actually, and then the 30-day will be more out of balance to the downside. Not getting, that's not a great indicator at the moment, but it does look like it wants to push into the higher levels at this stage. Definitely climbing the wall of worry at the moment. Fair few orders coming in here for shorts up to 70k, so it might try and take them before you see a pullback. I mean, there's a fair bit to the downside as well, but it's and after 64k, it actually gets pretty thin for orders at the moment. That will change if it does come back down. Just as this changes as it comes up, get more of these orders coming in. So, I mean, the read on this basically is more upside. BTC USD longs, they have seemingly started to actually accumulate a little bit. It's pretty flat though. What we could actually be seeing is basically this little pullback might be all we get. They will accumulate a little bit more or hold until we sort of break out into that new all-time high. And then if we see this drop at that point, then I'd be expecting a little bit more of a pullback. So, yeah, that's probably going to be one of the indicators I really look for to show me where there's going to be local pullbacks if we do break to all-time highs. Probably like take profit points. It's more the looking at it for. As you can see, they take profits as it's going up. And when this starts to base, that's kind of when you're potentially looking at tops and extra breakouts. I think that's about it. So this week going to be a fairly choppy week by the look of it. Lots of news coming out. Oil looks like it does want to move to the upside. Like gold's potentially set for a breakout, but like a breakout of this previous high anyway. Could happen. Yeah, there's a real mix of bearish signs in the short term, but probably bullish signs in the medium term over the next couple of weeks. It's just a matter of when we get that proper turnaround and that proper breakout. And it just looks like it wants to soak up liquidity in the meantime. Like this here was just choppy shit, really. These breakouts were just designed to suck people in. Even this last little one here, I actually was falling asleep right at the start of this candle and just put a long on and just said, fuck it. pretty sure if it fakes out, it's not going to wipe me out anyway. So I did take a long there, but I did take profit this morning when I woke up as well, just on that candle. If we break out above this one, I'll probably go long again, but for the time being, yeah, it's not interesting me too much there. This TDI is getting quite extended to the upside. There's potential for more upside, that's for sure. Just based on a couple of these indicators here. Probably if we get a vector through that upper Bollinger Band, then yeah, okay. Might be more upside. It was a decent little turnaround there, actually. All right. With that, I'll finish this